How worrying is it for you?
Well, thank you, Alfred, and again, good morning to you. Look, I have a slightly different perspective on this. First of all, I find it very stressful that we are devoting precious time to discuss an issue that is quite prevalent in our political system, our political processes, electoral processes. This is not new, and some of the panelists have already reiterated. I have been an avid election observer for many years in this country and elsewhere. In Ghana, the elections that I observed, and by the way, I am from the Ejisu By-Election, and I was there during the elections, and I did go around with a friend in the vehicle to see a few stations in the Siansi and a few others in Ejisu. So I have the direct evidence for what I observed.
I see.
But it's not shocking to me. Look, unless you want to be hypocrites in this country, vote buying has been part and parcel of our electoral processes indulged in by both political parties. Even amongst their own primaries, they indulge in that. But as hypocrites, we are picking on this event as if it's the first time we have witnessed it, instead of spending time to discuss how do we find a way to stop it. We need to change our political or electoral processes or the system in order to avoid the overwhelming influence of money in the way we elect our public officials. For me, that is the key issue. As for all the other incumbents, everybody knows. Of course, Kingsley Nyapon was most, his indiscretion was amazing. Somebody well-educated, a big political partisan, and you go to a place you're not supposed to be to dish out whatever that you say he dished out. Were you trying to influence them? I, on my own rounds, not this one, previous year's elections, when I was quite active in this field, I did provide water and food for certain elections officials, both in the northern parts of this country and elsewhere. Because at times you go when it's getting late, they haven't been given their food, water, and they cannot leave the station. So I have done that before, but I did it as a civil society person with no intent whatsoever to influence anything, but purely on humanitarian grounds. Kingsley had no business doing that because he did not go there to meet people who were famished. After all, the Electoral Commission says they do provide food during these events to their officials. And even if, in fact, they were famished, he should have been aware of his standing. He must have been aware of the political nature of this to have stayed away. So nothing can excuse him, and that is a given. But for me, as I say, look, we have a serious problem with our political process. These political parties, the two of them, NDC and PP, practice it, and instead of finding a way to sanitize our political system, we are spending all these hours beating on an issue that, look, anytime we have elections, if you read the reports, especially by CDP, it's a prominent part of their reports in all previous elections that this country system has been thoroughly monetized. That is the issue. And that's the issue that all of us should be interested in stopping it. Picking on one event like we have seen to discuss it as if it's the first time we experience it, for me is stressful, and I don't want to get into.
To the extent that, I mean, this is happening continuously, as you have indicated, it's a clear indication that in the past, nothing has been done to address this, or not much has been done to address this. So seeing this particular one and the height of it, that you would have that individual or a member of parliament have that confidence to even want to get into an area where he's not supposed to be. What action has to be taken to address this going forward, so that this one incident that we are making reference to would now be a reference point for actions that were taken to address this bigger problem that we're talking about?
Of course, if there are clear infractions of the electoral laws and that requires investigation and prosecution, that should proceed. No doubt at all in my mind on that. So I fully support the effort either by the EC or by the police to conduct the investigations and if it's necessary to prosecute, to do so. That I have no problem. My problem, Alfred, is that at times we behave, I don't know the word to describe ourselves, because this has happened, we are behaving as if it's a new thing. It's not, and my point is that the way forward should be how we examine our political processes, especially the electoral process, and find an antidote to stopping this. Because like somebody rightly said, if you do not have money in this country, there's no way you can go in for elections. And even what is worse, Alfred, in previous elections, candidates have come public on radio stations to admit, look, I gave 5,000 to this delegate, both from the NDC and the NPP. So what are we talking about? Please, let's find, the system is corrupt, no doubt. So what do we do to sanitize the system? If we require some changes in the processes, if we require certain measures to stop it, that is where my interest, because this is an issue, I can provide report upon report from CDD over the years and other sources, and they themselves, the party stalwarts, even publicly, have argued that they do it because at times they use the excuse of paying for transportation for our delegates, or they use all kinds of, including giving them lunch, as Kingsley is trying to claim. So is that new? It's not new, Alfred. So I think my good friends in the studio, look, what we should be doing is advocating for changing the process or bringing certain measures that will stop this nonsense in our political process.
Alfred, I am totally in disagreement with Professor Prof Agyeman Duah's position on this matter, because I think he's confusing three different things. Okay, there is one, the distribution of money to voters. There is two, the distribution of marijuana to voters. Then there is three, that envelope which was given by a certain member of parliament and deputy minister of state in this MPP government to an electoral officer. You can't put everything together and say that the discussion of all these three issues are hypocritical and that this has been happening. What has been happening? First of all, on the distribution of money, what has been happening, okay, is the distribution of money to delegates in internal party elections. That has been a prevalent phenomenon.
Public elections.
Exactly. Exactly. And that you can say happens on both sides. I would be a hypocrite to say that in internal elections in the NDC, people don't give delegates money. But we are talking about that phenomenon going to another level where even in public elections, now monies are being distributed to voters like it happened in Asenof and like it happened in Ejisu. And I am telling Professor Prof Agyeman Duah that you cannot find any CDD report on any public election in this country which recorded the kind of incidents we saw at Asenof and in Ejisu in terms of not internal elections and the distribution of money to delegates, but in terms of the distribution of money to voters in public elections like what we had at Asenof and Ejisu. It is unparalleled. So there is no basis for equalization. Number two, never has it happened in this country, and Professor Prof Agyeman Duah can show us any CDD reports which recorded an incident of a political party distributing marijuana, okay, to voters. So how can you put everything together and say that this has been happening? And so we are being hypocritical in raising these issues. Marijuana, in all the elections he observed, did he see any political party, including the MPP? Show us, not even real incidents, but even reports of political parties distributing marijuana. Then number three, this Kingsley Nyako matter we are talking about, Prof, with all due respect, is not just an act of indiscretion. Come on, our laws, our elections are governed by laws. If he was not an observer or an agent, by law, he was not supposed to enter that inner perimeter. Again, you cannot be distributing money. Okay, initially he denied. And the reason why I am of the opinion that whatever he gave that electoral officer was inducement. has to do with the inconsistent accounts he has given. In one breath, it was a document. In another breath, it was lunch. And it's been pointed out to him that, look, this was early morning. You know, it's very difficult for me to do this because he's a friend. And I go on Good Morning Ghana on Metro TV with him and all that. But this is about Ghana. You see, in one breath, you say it's a document. In another breath, it was lunch. Meanwhile, at the time you were doing it, it was even morning time. And you see, if it was a mere kind gesture, the electoral officer would not have felt any guilt in accepting it. Watch the video clearly. When he first presented the envelope, the EC officer did not take the envelope. He dropped it on the table.
In fact, one of them walked away.
He dropped it on the table and one walked away. So it's like, okay, people are watching, so you're uncomfortable, but I'm dropping it. Clearly, the intention was not legitimate. The reason, and nobody can tell me that this only happened at one polling station. We only saw this because, coincidentally, multimedia was granted an interview there, and the cameraman was present to zoom in for us to see this. Who knows the other polling stations he went to? You understand? So please, Prof, if he's saying that monetization is not a new phenomenon, he's right. But to say that we are being hypocritical and that all the issues we are discussing here are not new and that all political parties are guilty, he is wrong, terribly wrong, because the NDC is not in the activity of distributing marijuana to voters, and we are not in this business of distributing money wholesale to voters in public elections. Neither are we in the business of distributing money to electoral officers in public elections like this. So there is no basis for comparison or equalization. I rest my case.
Prof Agyeman Duah, certainly something has to be done. And in the end, I mean, sometimes when we go on this path of, okay, so this is not new, then we lose the sight of the agency.
Please respond briefly?
Yes, briefly.
First of all, see, when I come public to express myself, I'm not looking at this or the other party. I'm interested in the national interest. So when I say that this is not new, I'm not comparing NPP, NDC. So this issue of equalization is completely out of nowhere. I'm not interested in that. Secondly, the point is that we all agree that our political system has been monetized, and this agreement occurred long ago. So my point, therefore, is that sure, this may be special. As for the marijuana, frankly, I don't know. I've heard the reports. I didn't see it. I can talk about the money because I witnessed envelopes. I witnessed people lying up by a certain vehicle where money was given. I didn't question that. So it's an eyewitness. So
I see. And this was in this was Ejisu where you witnessed.
Ejisu It's part of the constituency.
Right.
You see. So I've seen that. And so the point, Sammy, is not engaging in equalization. You politicians do engage in equalization. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. Look, the issue is simple. When I said Kingsley was indiscreet about this, all I mean is that he's saying that he provided lunch. On that basis, I said, even if it was lunch, that would be indiscretion. As for the legalities, you're a lawyer. You guys can go to court, present the evidence, and you deal with it. That's not part of my business. But on a serious note, Sammy, let's agree that our politics has been highly monetized. And if that is the case, let us find a way to sanitize our political process. This is my interest. You see, as for the two parties, I know you can argue and bring evidence here and there. Fine, it's part of it. And citizens have a responsibility to pick on an issue like this. And I like what the media is doing. It's great. Maybe it's part of the education. But after all is said and done, we as a people, not just the political parties, but civil society and all interested parties, we have to begin to put our heads together. What do we do to sanitize our political processes? Because at every election, be it by-election, a general election, wherever where the two parties are competing, we all know. And that's why I said the reports of the CD are replete with these kinds of incidents that they observe and report. But if you think this one is of such a high level, it demands something, that's fine. I have no problem with that. It's not, I have no problem. But seriously, look, if we as a people do not find a better way of managing our political processes, it's going to explode in our places. Everybody knows that.
Let me ask Prof something. Does he agree that one of the better ways of nipping this canker in the bud is denunciation? What he's doing, condemning it. And that is what we are doing it, because we don't have the prosecutorial powers to prosecute those who are engaging in vote buying. But when we are brought here by TV3 on a platform like this, what is expected of us is to denounce it in very strong terms. And I think even the MPP rep on the show, at least on the issue of monetization, has denounced it. And that is what we are doing. You see, it is not like we are being hypocritical or anything.
Yes.
Oh, maybe the way hypocritical was unpleasant. I can withdraw that.
Okay, no, gentlemen.
But you are convinced.
Okay, Prof Agyeman Duah is saying something. Prof, I want to conclude. Yes, conclude on the point. Yes.
Yes, I was saying that if the use of the word hypocritical is offensive, well, I didn't direct it to him or his party. I directed it to Ghanaians, the way we behave politically. Because look, any time over the past 30 years, any political opposition speaks, as great as we all know, in power, their behavior, for me, you may say, oh, it's wrong, but from what you observe of the administration, the governance of these two parties, the difference is very, very slim. That is my observation. And that doesn't mean one party is hypocritical. So it wasn't directed to you.